Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's final presentation of OTF Connects for the 2014-15 school year. And tonight we have Mind Your Mind, Mental Health in the Classroom with Andrea Kirkham, who is the curriculum writer at Mind Your Mind. And we're very excited to have her with us tonight, as well as all of you here with us tonight, giving up some of your own time. And we're really excited, of course, as always, to have people from all over the province. And hello, Audrey, welcome. And here giving up some of your own time to further your learning and the learning of your students, and in this case tonight, furthering capacity to take care of their mind and be mindful of their mental health in the classroom, and I assume yours as well, and the whole community. So thank you everyone for coming tonight, and I am just going to go ahead. Oh, there's a comma. Sorry about that, Andrea.
That's okay. I forgive you. No problem.
So we shall hand things over to Andrea tonight, who will be able to introduce herself and Mind Your Mind a little bit more. And thanks, folks. And we'll be keeping up with things in the chat. And don't hesitate to use your microphone tonight, please. It's great to have these conversations. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Louise. Hello, welcome everybody. I'm very impressed with the turnout on a Thursday night in your own time. I'm so happy to be here. I've never done a webinar through OTF Connects, but I'm excited. This is a neat platform. And thanks, Louise, for the introduction. So I'm from Mind Your Mind. I'm the curriculum writer, as it says on your screen there. I should just tell you, in case you care, I am a teacher. I've been a teacher since 2002, and I've done a lot of different kind of types of jobs, elementary school and high school. I've worked in the public sector, and I've worked at private schools. So I've had sort of an interesting career, but for the past about 5 years or so, I've been writing curriculum and working on education-based resources with Mind Your Mind. So I thought we would start off by playing with our little clip art tool, actually. I wanted to know just from the group, just because it's a varied group. I was looking at the list of the people that had signed up to participate, lots of different people from different backgrounds. So let's start off by using this continuum. If you use your clip art tool, and again, that's the little icon with the landscape picture, and pick whatever common symbol you want. And what I want you to do is take a look at this continuum that I have on the slide and indicate for me what you think, where you think you fall on this continuum. So as a teacher, what would you say your comfort level versus your knowledge base is when it comes to talking about mental health in your classroom? Like if you were going to have to create a lesson plan for tomorrow's class about mental health, how comfortable would you be versus how much knowledge you have on the subject? I'm just curious to see, so you can go ahead. I've got one there. So everybody wants to indicate where they think they fall on the spectrum. And as you're doing that, I'll just say, like, I understand that probably your knowledge level would sort of maybe correlate with your comfort level, but not always. This is interesting. So this is really interesting. So some of us feel pretty comfortable and feel like their knowledge base is pretty good, but then there's some people that, are feeling, maybe somewhere in the middle, or that they're feeling like perhaps their comfort level and their knowledge level are not equal. So that's interesting. And what I'm hoping to do in the next hour or so that we have together is talk to you about Mind Your Mind and some of the stuff that we have on our web platforms and some of the work that we're doing, which would perhaps help you to increase your comfort level and or your knowledge level, and why that might be important regardless of the subject that you teach. And I'm wondering, I don't know if anybody wants to express verbally, but I'm wondering if we can think about what do you think just initially off the top of your head might improve a teacher's ability or comfort level so that they feel good about talking about mental health in the classroom. I don't know if anybody feels comfortable answering that out loud using their microphone or typing in. So Allison said in the chat box, knowledge. I don't know if there's any other thoughts and tools to speak about it. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add. Oh, support to speak from the administration. Oh, and Nicholas is talking about personal experience either with themselves, family members, or students they've taught in the past. I think that's also a huge key. Like, you need support from your admin, and yeah, if you've had personal experience with it, it might really improve your knowledge and your comfort level. And yeah, so Linda's talking a little bit, echoing some of these thoughts, learning more and having some personal experience with the subject. All of that makes, all these answers make a ton of sense. And hopefully I can talk to you about how Mind Your Mind could at least support sort of some of Allison's thoughts here about knowledge. Perhaps Mind Your Mind tools could help increase your knowledge base, and there might even be some tools that I introduce you to throughout the course of the webinar that might you might find handy to speak about these issues in your classroom. Oh, and then one more participant saying school environment and community. That is huge. Not every school environment is created equal, and I'm sure that there are school boards and individual schools, and then within those individual schools, individual teachers or administrators that would make it, you know, more or less comfortable to speak about these issues. Oh, and Linda brings up a point here. So teaching curriculum that naturally supports the conversations. That's great. I'm so happy you brought that up, because we will hopefully have a conversation later about yeah, there's some subjects that where it's written right into the curriculum that you need to talk about either mental illnesses and mental health directly or peripherally, whereas other subjects that might be tougher to sort of just work it into what you're already doing. And so hopefully we can have some conversations about that. And Louise is sorry, there's a component in the note. Yeah, the health and phys ed. Yes, there should be some new health. I haven't looked at it super closely, but apparently, yes, there's more direct information in the health and phys ed curriculum that addresses mental health a little bit more robustly, because right now it's there, but it's not super prominent, and it also often appears in classes that are not mandatory classes, which is unfortunately. Some boards, I'm just seeing here that Linda's talking about that mental health is becoming a priority at her board, and which is I'm seeing here at my local board too. Like I'm in the London area, and I work at the Thames Valley District School Board in addition to Mind Your Mind, and I know that our board has a very strong mental health lead, and is making it. It's been a priority for a few years now. And yeah, I'm so glad. So Denise is an English teacher. So yeah, we're talking. Hopefully, we'll have more conversations later too about being able. There's some subject matter that lends itself to being able to have natural conversations about mental health, whereas some subjects maybe not so much. And how can we incorporate those conversations anyway? I feel like I should give you guys a little bit of background about Mind Your Mind before I just show you a bunch of stuff. I feel like context is important. Understanding our process and some of our philosophies before we dive in, so that it gives you a little bit of explanation to some of the tools we'll be looking at. Mind Your Mind has been around for about 10 years. It was started by a couple of art therapists who were kind of wondering why youth weren't reaching out for help, even though, you know, young people aged 14 to 24 are a demographic that has a mental health need. And the thought was, they came to the conclusion that perhaps youth maybe needed a different approach. They occupy a funny space in the health world, right? They're not children, and they're not quite full adults, and so they occupy a unique space. So perhaps they need a unique approach. B, also, like, youth are going online and accessing information and services that way, and so in order for them to get the information they need, perhaps we need to meet them where they are, which is online. And then also they had the thought right from the inception of the program that resource creation had to include youth in order for it to be timely and relevant, and to have buy-in from young people. So that's how we started. And if you had asked me like 9 or 10 years ago when the program was starting, you know, what is Mind Your Mind? The answer probably would have been, well, you know, we're a website. But now the answer is quite different. We're a more robust program, and we're not just a mental health program, we're a mental health and engagement program. So we're sort of known and brought into projects often now more for our youth engagement practices and development of resources, which just happen to be digital resources. I'm seeing some questions in the box. Louise, should we save these questions for the end? These are good questions.
Yeah, wherever you think they'll incorporate in. I think we're kind of just dialoguing a little bit, back channel stuff.
Oh, Allison has a question.
Go ahead if you like, Allison. If that was an oopsie, that's okay too.
No, it's okay. It was just an oops.
Okay. So I'll come back to this question. Okay, I'm just looking at Nicholas's questions in the chat box. I'm going to come back to that when we start talking a little bit about curriculum, because this is exactly kind of part of why we do what we do. So when we're working here at Mind Your Mind on whatever resources, the underlying assumption when we're working is that, you know, youth and adult partnerships are mutually beneficial. So when we work on creating resources, we've got youth and adults at the table, stakeholders or whoever's part of the project. And this represents a bit of a paradigm shift for some people. Like, we can assume that when we're working in this way, that both youth and the adults at the table are walking away from a project learning something new. We know that good youth engagement leads to better health outcomes. We see it all the time. And ultimately, all we're trying to do is promote youth and young adult resilience and mental health and well-being, and ensure that people are getting identified early and getting early intervention as well. So it's kind of a driving force. And the underlying assumption is if we're doing that with youth at the table, then we're going to be able to improve mental health outcomes for youth. This is just one way, just because a lot of the tools that we're going to be looking at together, we're going to be jumping on the web, and I'll be showing you some stuff and giving you time to wander off from the webinar and check out some web platforms and some tools. But I just wanted to tell you about this because this is how a lot of our stuff is created. This is one way that we work with youth, and where we run what we call design studios, which are basically intensive co-creation workshops. Every time we do this, it's a little different depending on the project aims, who's in the room, the stakeholders involved, and how much time and money or resources that we have allotted. But the key elements are always the same that we try to stick to when we're doing these design studios, is that everybody's coming to the table and understanding that having people at the table that have lived experience with mental health issues, that's best evidence. That's only going to help us understand the topic further, and that we're generating solutions as a group. This is a very different process than youth-led or adult-led. This is co-creation. This is coming to the table assuming that everybody is bringing some good knowledge and expertise to the table. And when we do this, it creates impact. Design studios aren't the only way that youth get involved with our program, but often youth who participate in a design studio end up kind of sticking around and contributing to the program or contributing to the website in other ways. So I'm going to give you a break from my scratchy voice for a second, and I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to show you guys a video in a second. I'll just give you a quick, background about this video though. So in 2013, so about 8 years into our program, we wanted to sort of understand our youth involvement model at Mind Your Mind. We wanted to, because it's such an intangible thing, and we wanted to sort of really be able to talk to people about how we work with youth. So we decided to do a big assessment of our program, and we took an appreciative inquiry process, which means that we're going to look at the things that are working well, and hope that when we do that, it moves us in that direction, and the things that maybe aren't working well as part of our program are going to be naturally revealed through the process. So what we did is we grabbed all of our staff, and we grabbed 8 youth who were pretty familiar with the program that had worked with us, and we asked the youth a few questions. We said, what are your best experiences at Mind Your Mind? What do you value about yourself and what you bring to the program? And what are some things about the Mind Your Mind youth program that make it what it is? and what would you like to do to maintain and strengthen the program. We did a huge mind dump, like literally on the table, like just all of our ideas on the table, organized it, and eventually some youth sort of honed it down, and it became a diagram of a smoothie of all things. They decided that the best analogy to describe Mind Your Mind's youth involvement program is a smoothie. So we made a video out of it. So I'm hoping, Louise, if you don't mind, so we're going to do this a couple of ways. I'm going to use the web tour tool now and jump to this link. But just know that if for some reason that's not working, you can access the link, the YouTube link to this video from your own computer.
Yep.
Now, of course, this is not letting me copy and paste.
I've got the link at the ready. Do you want me to drop it in?
Do you
problem.
Mind?
Okay, folks, so
in
that spinning dark area now, that's where YouTube will show up. If it doesn't show up for you, the link is in the chat, and it is just a YouTube video. It's going to start playing right away, and YouTube tends to be louder than the volume in Blackboard Collaborate. So you may want to be prepared to turn it down if needed. And when you finish the video, give us a green check mark, and then we'll know you're done. Some of you might get ads or delays or that kind of thing. So here we go.
So thanks, Louise. Hopefully everybody that worked for everybody. It worked beautifully for me. I could hear and see everything. So hopefully, I think everybody is done. Louise, yeah, everybody.
I think we're pretty close. I'd say go ahead.
All right. So it's a funny analogy, but I think it works, and I'd like to say I had something to do with it, but I really did not. That was the analogy that you came up with, and it actually makes a ton of sense for a program now. Like, who knows? Maybe in 5 to 10 years that won't be the analogy that fits, but right now I think that's a pretty good description of how our program works and how we try to work. Now let's talk about, if you don't mind, we've talked about the how, and I just want to talk to you guys about the why. And this is something that I would imagine that many of you see in your classroom, and it's just that there's a huge need. I mentioned to you before that, these are therapists that started the program. They were seeing that youth were not reaching out for help. Even though it's a demographic where a lot of mental health issues are prevalent, and what we want to do is get youth talking. The statistic there, I'm not a huge fan of statistics all the time, but I think that these are pretty startling. That, what we're seeing is that only 25% of youth with a self-identified mental health concern. So that's not even the youth that are walking around not quite aware that there's something wrong. These youth, only 25% of them are actually accessing formal or informal supports. Like, they're just not, 75% just aren't saying anything to anybody, even though they know that there's something wrong. And we know that, 70% of mental health issues that start in youth can be solved through early intervention. Like, if you get in early and start identifying the problems early, there's pretty good outcomes. But what we need to do is get youth talking, and that's what we're trying to do at Mind Your Mind. So a lot of our tools and our resources and our web platforms and the work that we do is about giving youth the supports that they need and the capacity that they need to identify when something might be going on, with themselves or with a friend, and then B, the capacity to be able to sort of talk about it, whether that be to somebody that's a formal, mental health program or informal supports in their life. And yeah, Nicholas, I'm just seeing your comment that there's not enough supports in organizations for kids under 12 because a lot of people don't realize, the general public doesn't understand that some mental health issues do begin in childhood, like early childhood. And so there are gaps. Like the system is not perfect, but we do need youth. I think the first step, we need people to understand, have a better understanding what mental health is and isn't, and that's a good place to start to at least get conversations flowing and sort of reduce stigma, which is another thing that we're trying to do. So I wonder what you guys think about that, and wonder what your thoughts are as educators or just human beings. Like, what do you think the problem is? What are the barriers to getting help? So why aren't more young people accessing help when they need it? So I don't know, you could use your text box to type this response. I left some blank space on the slide, or you can just use the chat or just talk. So one idea there is that they just don't know where to access the help. I would argue that that's absolutely the case. And then there's the shame. There's a real stigma still attached to mental illness and what that means to have a mental illness, and so people may not want to reach out because of that problem. Looks like somebody else typed, so they might not think that they need help. I'm sure you guys see that sometimes from time to time, students that, maybe are struggling, but they just think the mindset might be like, I just need to suck it up, or I don't need help. Or somebody wrote, yeah, they not understand their behavior or thought patterns are unusual, right? Might thinking like, this is just the way that I am. I'm just an anxious person, or I'm just somebody that's moody. This is just, this is normal. They might not think that they need help. There's lots of layers of bureaucracy I'm seeing, whether it's in the school, right, in the school setting, or just like in the health system. I think that adults have a tough time sometimes navigating the health system, let alone a young person. It can be very daunting, and there are tons of layers of bureaucracy. I would agree with that. Nicholas, you're talking about that mental health agencies don't get involved because unless somebody's gotten in trouble. It's like you have to get in trouble, go through the criminal justice system in order for people to finally sort of clue in that you might need some support. And that's definitely the case I've seen as well. And then we've got parents who can be a barrier or a help to their child, right? And if parents don't have the language or within their culture the acceptance level to help, then the support's going to be tough for like a 15-year-old kid to get support. Oh, and I'm seeing, this is a great comment too, just talking about that that students might feel that there's a stigma, but the parents, that there's not a stigma, but the parents do. So not wanting to admit to mom and dad, or maybe the culture at home is that, there's something wrong with you, or you just need to suck it up, or even though the young person might understand that they need some help. Again, it's hard to access help as a young person when you don't have your parents on board sometimes. And then of course there's some youth, I'm sure, that we all teach, and I'm seeing a comment here about that too, that like some young people don't feel like they have a caring adult to turn to. So these are all great, I'm seeing this too, sense of despair. I think that a lot of young people too feel like, what is the point? Nobody can help me, or sometimes it takes a crisis for something to happen. It's like sometimes young people, they don't even realize, or nothing's done until they're really in dire straits. They're showing up at emerge with suicidal ideation, or perhaps they're having their first panic attack and they think they're dying. So when there's no crisis, it means that there's no action. But, when I go back to that statistic that I mentioned before, that, 70%, of youth, if you get them early, then the outcomes can be quite good. But if you're waiting to the point of crisis, it's not too late, but it's unfortunate. It's better to get them earlier. I'm also seeing some stuff about people self-medicating. I think adults and young people do this. And self-medication is more youth-friendly, though. Like, it's more accepted in youth culture, right? The kids smoke pot daily or binge drinking every weekend. It seems like normal teen behavior, but you might argue that a lot of young people are not doing that for fun. They're doing it to sort of cope with stuff. So I mean, these are amazing. I would say that all of these are things that I've seen and experienced as a teacher, even outside of my work in Mind Your Mind. And this is the kind of stuff, too, that I hear from youth. It's really, I just wanted to reiterate that to you, that a lot of these answers are what we hear from youth. And I'm not surprised, because I'm talking with a group of professionals that are in tune with youth, that work with youth every day. So I'm not surprised. It seems you guys have really sort of get it, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. So if we move, I'm going to move beyond this. So we've talked about the why, and we've talked about why kids might, not get help, and all the reasons, and a lot of young people aren't reaching out for help. And what we're seeing within our program when we do sort of internal evaluation is that mindyourmind.ca repeat users have a much higher chance of accessing formal or informal support as a result of their use of the tools or the information or help they received on our web platforms. I mean, this is such good news for us and for everybody, I think, that accesses the program. It's so validating for us, because what it tells us is that if we engage youth in conversation and processes, change happens. It tells us that perhaps what we're doing is the right thing. Perhaps that maybe the way we co-create resources, it makes that we're making things that are relevant to young people. But I think most importantly, what it tells us is that when young people have even just a bit of knowledge under their belt, they feel more capable and maybe willing and able of reaching out for help. So psychoeducation works. If we talk about mental health issues and we give people some information about them, break down the barriers a little bit, then they're maybe a little bit more apt to realize that something's going on with them, or something is going on with one of their friends, and they may feel like they maybe have the tools or the language to talk about it, which is very, like I said, very validating for us, and it's very encouraging. So let's talk about, because we've already kind of touched on this, but now I'll just let you loose on here. Where are you seeing mental health information appearing in the curriculum? Like, we've just talked about how psychoeducation works, and if we give kids some info about mental health, then perhaps that's going to go a long way to help them. But where does that leave us as teachers? Where are you guys seeing like direct mental health information appearing in the curriculum, where you're actually being mandated to talk about it in the classroom? I know that I see it. I'm going to write in here. I know that the PPL 3.0 course talks directly about mental health. That's the grade 11 health. You're seeing it in intermediate grades. Somebody's saying that they're teaching higher ed and students work in schools, and that you're seeing them share that they're not seeing it in the curriculum. It kind of runs off the page here, but I'm assuming that that's what you were saying. Anybody else where you're seeing, whether it's something that you're teaching or that you've taught before in the past, or so this is where I'm more like in the curriculum that we're seeing it. And I would argue that, yeah, there's not a lot of courses that direct with it that deal with it directly, where you're actually explicitly talking about like mood disorders, anxiety disorders, you know, signs of suicide. I've seen it in the PPL3 course. Now, what about where you're talking about mental health in other ways, where you're talking about mental health versus mental illness? Somebody mentioned before the family studies courses, right? Like some of the social sciences and then the family studies courses might talk about stuff like healthy relationships or stress management. I think it appears a bit in the careers. Some of the guidance courses in high school might touch on some of this more peripheral issues. Is there anything else that I've missed? Oh, I'm seeing this. Ooh, this is interesting that there's an initiative at one school about coming up with lesson plans that address mental health at least on a weekly basis. So see, that's amazing, and that's interesting that that's being sort of mandated, or that it's being discussed in a school-wide level. So I mean, I'll let you keep adding stuff, but what I'm seeing here is that in what I've seen when I look at a scan, it's there. It's there. You do talk about it in certain courses in phys ed. You touch on it. You might talk about other stuff that's mental health related, like drug use or substance use. Like I said, healthy relationships. I don't know if there's any folks in the room here that use 4th-R, which isn't a mandated curriculum thing, but it's a way of talking about mental health in English and in phys ed or health. So it's there in the curriculum, and then I'm noticing that people are mentioning in the chat box the Ministry of Ed, the Supporting Minds document. So the Supporting Minds document came out through School Mental Health Assist, which is like sort of a ministry branch for mental health. It's sort of new-ish, and that's sort of the organization that sort of coordinates all the mental health leads from across the province. So there's stuff coming out, and it was mentioned earlier too that like the new phys ed and health curriculum is doing more to address mental health. But I know that in I went through high school, I didn't take a single course that talked about mental health. And it's limited in that a lot of the courses where you're going to see mental health being discussed are courses that are not mandatory. Like it's great that they talk, that there's what is that course? Sociology, the SAP course, Sociology, Anthropology, Psychology, awesome course, but how many kids take that? It's an elective. Grade 11 Health and Phys Ed is an elective. I stopped taking Phys Ed after grade 9. Not everybody takes family studies. So you've got a lot of kids that are maybe traveling through 4 or 5 years of high school, and they're not once having sort of curriculum mandated conversations about mental health in the classroom, which is interesting. And people in the comments here are sort of talking it's limited in the high school. Once people don't have to take phys ed anymore, and like I just mentioned, I never did after grade 9, you're kind of opting out of these conversations at a curriculum level. So people are too, I'm just noticing that people are talking about, and we touched on this earlier, and actually I'll go to the next slide where we can talk about this. What kinds of things are you doing or seeing in your schools or schools that you've worked at to promote or support mental health where you work? So maybe that's in the classroom or school-wide or board-wide. So somebody, we had a discussion earlier, somebody mentioned like you can incorporate conversations about mental health into an English class. If you're studying Hamlet, or you're studying, you're reading the novel Crab with like a grade 9 applied class, like you can touch on mental health stuff. You can weave it in to what you're already doing. I'm an visual art teacher as well, and you can weave these conversations in. So perhaps that's something that you're seeing or that you're doing yourself. Or perhaps you're seeing school-wide initiatives. So people were mentioning earlier that there was this sort of school-wide idea about incorporating lessons. Or perhaps, as somebody mentioned before, the board is making a priority. So what kinds of activities are you seeing? We just had Mental Health Week earlier in the month, so maybe you're going to talk about stuff, maybe in the chat box or right here, about things that your school or your class or your board did to celebrate Youth Mental Health Week, which is the beginning of May. Or maybe you're not seeing much of anything happening. It's, I think it differs. So yeah, Mental Health Awareness Week, Minds Up program is really cool. Purposely in the classroom choosing articles that delve into mental health topics, so you can have conversations about that in the classroom, which is great. Denise mentioned in the chat here about interesting to see what what's included in the English curriculum that's required for each year of high school. In my experience, each high school English curriculum, English department sort of has their own sort of repertoire that they pull from or that they decide depending on the head, the department head. But there are lots of sort of commonly read novels and plays out there that talk about mental health stuff. So maybe, teachers are purposely weaving in these conversations to support the work of fiction that they're reading. Looks like, there's a bulletin board.
Good point there about
doing yoga, not toga.
I was just going to say the point that Duge made in the chat about DPA, because we know the neuroscience behind physical activity and serotonin and all those different kinds of things and how that affects our brain. And I just want to quickly jump in for a second. If anyone's having any trouble figuring out the text tool as a text box, it's the fourth tool from the top in your tool strip. It might look like a plain capital A, or it might look like an A with lines. Either of those is fine. And once you select that and click on the whiteboard, you should be able to type.
I just added in puppy rooms during exams. I don't know if anybody's seen that. There's a local high school here that's been doing that for a couple of years. They'll pick a couple of weeks, sort of, strategically planned weeks that maybe you're coming up to exams or whatever, and they'll get some service puppies in, which is so cute, and it's a very popular, and people just go in and play with puppies because you can't be sad when you're around puppies. This is interesting. Nicholas was talking about that agencies come in that could help support families with social issues, including mental health, and coming in and setting up sort of like a booth so that parents could come in. They're there anyway for interview days to come in and grab some information about some services that they could access, which is great. That sounds like a great idea. Ensuring food and beverages are provided during exams. So and helping students make the connection. I think that's lovely because you're helping students make the connection between about the connection between nutrition and feeling mentally well. Assist training. That's interesting. A lot of you seem to be indicating that assist training is coming in on a board level. That's awesome to hear. I don't know if anybody here is assist trained, but that's a suicide intervention program. And I think that's, that it's fabulous that we're seeing that more and more. And then the mental health leads, that's a new role for the boards, and that's part of school mental health. It's just having an actual person, and that's their whole umbrella is nothing but mental health, instead of having it rolled in with other board departments. I'm seeing a couple of people are doing assist training. That's awesome. It is a fabulous training. Safe Talk is great too. I'm assist trained as well, and what I like about assist, if anybody's not heard of assist or is not assist trained, assist is neat because you do a lot of role play. You have to actually role play conversations that you would have with somebody that's considering suicide, and I think that's really valuable, and so it's really great to see that this is on everybody's radar. So I think what I'm going to do, hang on, I can't get rid of the text thing on my page. There we go. never mind. All right, I'm going to, now let's talk about Mind Your Mind. So we've talked about the why. Ooh, Nicholas, that's interesting about assist. I'm going to come back to and ask you about that in a second. We talked about the how we work with youth, why we work with youth, what's happening in the school. So now I just want to show you some stuff about Mind Your Mind, which is kind of the point of why we're here. So mindyourmind.ca is our main web platform. And I need you to understand, and I'm going to sort of reiterate this. There are tons, mindyourmind.ca website is a huge resource. It's a huge website. There's a ton of content on there. Some of it is text-based. Some of it is interactive. Some of it is direct mental health information, where some of it's a little bit more indirect. A lot of the content is submitted by youth and young people, so a lot of the personal stories, our blogs, etc. Very active social media accounts, which we sort of display on our site. You can see this is just sort of a screenshot of our main web platform. And I would argue that there are lots of resources on this site that a teacher could use in a variety of ways to get more informed or to refer students to so that they know where to go for resources. And then there's even tools on there that I would argue that could be directly facilitated or woven into lessons and assignments. And I'm saying this because I know that teachers do this. I've spoken to many, many, many teachers that use Mind Your Mind resources directly in the classroom. But I would like to remind you that our program itself is aimed at youth aged 14 to 24. So unless we're working on a curriculum resource project, which we do at times, and I'll show you some later, it's important to remember just remember that we're creating resources for youth, not for teachers. And I'm mentioning this because in a minute I'm going to let you just sort of explore through Mind Your Mind. I'm going to give you a break from my voice and let you go off and just sort of check out mindyourmind.ca. But there's content on there that you're going to encounter that's like not comfortable for a classroom setting for various reasons. There might be language or content that you might not feel comfortable presenting in a classroom, but at the end of the day, the happy byproduct of many of the resources we make for youth, of course, is that teachers say, hey, youth like this, it's pretty cool, it's got good information, so I probably could apply this in the classroom setting. So I'm not suggesting that using mindyourmind.ca in the classroom means letting youth, wild on the website and encountering, all sorts of language that you might not feel comfortable with in a classroom setting, but there are lots of resources on there that are absolutely classroom appropriate, even though we didn't directly think about teachers when we were creating it. So I'll give you an example. There's a game on there called Reach Out. This is a game that we've had as part of our program since the inception of the program. I think 10 years ago when we started the program, before my time, it was actually like a physical board with cards, like laminated cards, and it was like a Jeopardy game. And then it evolved into a digital game, and the digital game has been redone and redone. Every couple of years we totally overhaul it. What you're seeing on your screen is the latest version of Reach Out. It's kind of this cool 8-bit style. We worked with a group of youth who designed the whole concept, and funnily they chose like a 1980s looking theme. But basically what Reach Out is, and always has been, is an interactive game that challenges knowledge about mental health 101. The content, not just the design, it's not just about the design that's been co-created with youth, but the content as well. And over the years, we've seen a change in the needs for different types of content. And so we're very careful to not just have youth involved in the design process, but also the content development. The single-player version is available right on the site in the interactive section with all our other sort of interactives and games, but we actually have a multiplayer version which I take around into schools and classrooms, usually locally, and I play it. So I divide kids into teams, and we play this game for like an hour about mental health, and it's engaging and fun. It's got video pop-ups and stuff. But we also have it for sale. So we've had some schools buy different versions of Reach Out, and they come with a facilitator guide, and they can implement it in their classroom as a tool. And it really is a core tool that we use for outreach in classrooms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be quiet now, and well, maybe Louise and I will talk about setting the timer or something. But I just wanted to give you some time to just check out some of mindyourmind.ca. I'm assuming that at least a few of us have looked at mindyourmind.ca before, but on your screen here I just sort of picked things that I think that a teacher might be able to incorporate into their classroom or their school-wide resources or initiatives. And so that includes the wellness pages, which is just great, like little tidbit like tips for wellness, our help pages, which is very comprehensive in plain language and has a lot of information with different types of help needs. And then a lot of our interactives, that's the fun part of the site. So if you go to the interactives tab on mindyourmind.ca, you'll find my picks would be like Reach Out, which I just talked about. There's another game called Navigators. There's another neat little tool called Quote Bloom. And then there's another cool tool that we developed with some youth in Toronto called Queer as Soup, which is about LGBTQ language. And then there's a sort of a guided journal interactive called Life Journal. So I'm just going to say to you, just wander away from the webinar now. And Louise has posted the link directly into the chat box. And it's mindyourmind.ca. And I'll go back one slide or two slides. So that you can see what the homepage should look like. So Louise, should we set like a timer or something? Tell people to come back in 5 minutes?
That sounds terrific to me, and I'm not sure how you're doing for time with the big picture, but 5 minutes seems very reasonable to go off and not get too far down the rabbit hole, but far enough to know what else is there.
I think we're good.
Okay, 5 minutes.
I think we're good for time. Cool. So it sounds like the timer has gone out. So if you're still looking, that's awesome, but I'm just going to plug ahead and just give us just a sec before we move on. If you saw anything interesting or troubling or cool, or if you wanted to give me any feedback, that's awesome. I don't know, everybody kind of maybe did different things or checked out different things, and maybe you just want to share what you looked at. I think I see that Allison was looking at the Quote Bloom tool, which is I really love. And I was talking about how whenever, as an English teacher, I look at that and I think of that as a great tool, little tool that you could access to, be a journal prompt or something. It's very simple, and the content was curated by young people picking the quotes. And actually, interesting about Quote Bloom is that we actually have another tool on there called Tree of Lights, which is our original tool, which is quotes. But things change, and whenever we do anything with pop culture references, it's like we have to update it because things get old in pop culture world, and after about 10 minutes. So we updated, and the result was Quote Bloom, and I think it's I personally think it's a beautiful tool. This is great, yeah. So exploring the resource some more, and a smartboard is a neat approach too, just because you can actually interact with it a little bit. And I think some of the tools on the site would be better than others with the smartboard, but I know that I like playing our version of Reach Out, because our older version of Reach Out worked really good with a smartboard. I don't think I've tried the new 8-bit one on a smartboard, but I think that it would be neat to do the touch screen while playing this game. I don't know if there's any other comments about what you saw. So Denise is talking about the posters. Oh, this is neat. So yeah, having students, be it like maybe actually using some of the content on the site as a catalyst, or like as the examples for things that students can do in the classroom or in the school. And so Denise is talking about posters, student created posters, which would be awesome. I want to talk a little bit about our curriculum resources. The main resource that I'm going to show you in a second is called My Toolkit. But I feel like I'm just going to briefly talk to you, like, My Toolkit came about, the resources on mytoolkit.ca, the learning modules I'm going to show you, came about as a result of us doing like online learning modules for our local school board. So we got approached by Thames Valley District School Board a few years ago before I started working at Mind Your Mind, actually. And we actually worked together with them on a project where they paid us to create digital lessons, online lessons that they access through their employee portal. They wanted specific modules, one for the GLS, GLE courses, which are guidance learning and strategies, if you're not familiar, and then the other one is for the PPL 3 or L, which is the grade 11 health. So we created these online lessons. So the idea is that a teacher would like book a computer lab, get kids on the computers, and the kids would just sort of click through the lessons on their own and at their own pace. And throughout the lessons, they would encounter Mind Your Mind interactive tools, some videos. There's a teacher guide that comes with it for the teacher so that they understand what's happening in each lesson. And then there's assignments with assessment tools included as well. So there's parts where they have to like look at something and then they click to the next page of the lesson and they have to like actually type something out and print it. The PPL 3O course, the grade 11 lessons actually got evaluated nationally as part of a study about stigma reduction, and so that was really exciting for us. We actually got to see whether or not kids that used that lesson module had a reduction in stigma, and when the results came back, they were really, really lovely and promising, and it showed us that yes, again, when students have a little bit of information about mental health, it can help reduce stigma, and it also kind of helped us, the results that we saw kind of helped us learn that online learning opportunities are engaging for students. This resource, I'm just answering your question in the chat here. This resource in particular is not available for other school boards. We created it specifically for Thames Valley District School Board. They actually own it. That's why I'm actually not showing it to you and clicking through the lessons. But I wanted to show it to you now because what we did is after our grade 11 lessons got evaluated and we saw what was working in them, we then applied what we learned to mytoolkit.ca, which is a freely accessible web platform. If you go to mytoolkit.ca, you're going to find 2 online interactive learning modules that are very similar to what we created for TVDSB. One is about overall wellness, and the other one is about stress. These 2 include Facilitator guides for youth serving professionals and teachers to help implement the resource. And actually, very exciting, in the next week or 2, we're going to be launching a 3rd module that's about substance use. So this is a resource that anybody can use. And there's a couple of different ways to use it. You could get kids to just sit down, like I said, at a computer lab and click through on their own. You could facilitate it as a teacher, get them to click through it. You could go, throw it on the smart board and go through some of the stuff on your own. I did a lot of the writing on these modules, and so because I'm a teacher, I think like a teacher, and I think I always had in mind like that teachers like to adapt and take resources and adapt it to how they teach. So I kind of made it so that you didn't have to go through these modules from start to finish. If you wanted to just there's just certain elements or chapters that you wanted to focus on, they could be sort of standalone, and it would make sense. So this came about as a part of a project that we worked on called the Young Health Program, and it's great. There's other stuff on mytoolkit.ca besides the learning modules. One of them is this thing right here that you're seeing, which is a mobile app that you can access from mytoolkit.ca, which is a free mood tracking app for youth, which is pretty cool. But I think for you guys, the teacher crowd, I think that the wellness and the stress modules would be of most interest to you. I'm going to, what am I going to do here? Should I do a web tour here? Maybe I will. I'll just show you. Well, actually, no, I don't think I will. I think I'm going to leave you guys alone to go to the mytoolkit.ca on your own. So take a minute. The link is posted in the chat box, or it's pretty easy to remember. It's mytoolkit.ca, and you can click on either wellness or stress and just take a quick look. I'll tell you too, when you're navigating, that these little connect the dots icons appear on many pages as you click through, and when you hover over those you get sort of more information, or it's like a discussion prompt. There are videos embedded throughout, so you can watch a couple of those if you want. So Louise, why don't we set the timer again for like, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, just to let people have a taste so they can at least see how it navigates. So I'll turn off my mic and let you guys just sort of go and explore and take a look. Well, there's the bell to come back. If you've been sort of wandering around the modules, I'll invite you to come back if you want. And I don't know, again, just take a sec to, I don't know if you have anything to share, again, if there's anything problematic you saw or something cool that you saw, or your just sort of initial thoughts. I don't know if you want to type that or say it out loud. I will share that this module is a little different than the ones that we did with TVDSB, these modules, because the ones we did for TVDSB were for very specific courses, and they were created very specifically for teachers, whereas this one is a little bit more, these you might have noticed the tone is a little more general, because we also wanted some, you know, again, like maybe you're not talking about mental health, maybe you're not teaching the grade 11 health course. We wanted this to be a resource that any teacher could access, or maybe a youth facilitator at a Boys and Girls Club, or maybe a youth group leader at a faith group or something. So we wanted these to be modules that were pretty versatile. So we didn't make it geared specifically towards curriculum documents, although if you were to go through the wellness and the stress modules, you'd say it would touch on a lot of stuff that you would maybe touch on, you know, in a family studies course, or that you could weave into an English course, and all the stuff that we've talked about. Oh, great chat, great feedback. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the facilitator guide was important, Denise, to create, because we wanted people to sort of feel like there were different ways to use the resource, and the discussion, the little connect the dots icons, I think, are a neat way to sort of interactively sort of incorporate some discussion or some reflection prompts. And I'm glad that that you guys are sort of seeing the value of the first person's perspective and some of the content in it. And yeah, the videos, I'm just seeing the comment, the videos are just the right length. Thank you. Yeah, we're short and sweet is our motto here. Young people don't want to read a wall of text or watch a 20-minute video, so try to keep it sort of commercial length. I'm so glad that you guys think this, and obviously you saw some of the use in the videos, and the use were very that worked, so like really not. So there's a couple that were sort of scripted, but the script was developed with use, and then a lot of them, as one of the videos I think that appears in one of the modules, is absolutely not scripted. It's just two young people having a conversation. And yes, Nicholas, thank you. Yeah, if you're sharing the resources, please do. That's a beautiful thing about mytoolkit.ca. It's made, it's up there, anybody can access it. So share. If you think somebody might like it or be able to use it in all or in part, please share the resources. Wow, I love you guys. All good feedback. So I want to tell you guys about something exciting, and I'm not making this up. You are literally the first people outside of our program to even know about this, because it's brand new. I'm just working on final edits with our web developer now, but there's going to be a third module added to this platform about substance use. I'm particularly excited about this one because of the people that I had working with me. I worked very closely with a young person connected with our program who has lived experience with pretty pretty profound substance use issues who created, who told their story, which we made into animated videos that appear throughout the resource. I'm going to show you one in a minute. And this is really exploring everything to do with substance use. What is it? What is the connection between substance use and mental health? Why do people use substances? And why do some people that use substances develop a problem while some other people don't? So it really looks at substance use as a continuum. The tone is very not judgmental. You're not going to see, this is your brain on drugs. This is very, very matter-of-fact, plain language, direct. This is what drugs or substances are. This is why some people might use it and some people don't. This is why when it might be becoming problematic. Takes a bit of a harm reduction approach or some harm reduction information, sort of a tone of like, if you're going to party, here are some things that you can do to do that as safely as possible, and then also some intervention strategies for helping a friend that might be struggling with substance use issues. So Allison, when will it launch before? Oh yeah, it's launching probably in the next week or two. And actually, if you follow us on Twitter, which you should, because our Twitter is awesome, our Twitter feed, we tweet out tips every day at noon usually, and every month it's different themes. So all of our tips this month will be about substance use and feature some of the content from the module, and we'll be hosting a tweet chat at the end of the month, in correlation with the launch of the module, and we're really excited about it. And the advisory group that I worked with are people from like CAMH and Ministry of Health, so I'm just mentioning that because you guys, I know we all like to know that our resources are sound and best evidence, and so you should feel good about this being all of that. I am now going to go to WebTour. Louise, if you don't mind posting the link, dropping the link into WebTour if you don't mind, because it wasn't working for me before. This is one of the videos created with this young person. There's a video that appears in every chapter of the substance use module to correspond with the topic of that chapter. And this is the young person literally in her voice telling her story about her experience with substance use. So this is a resource. Literally nobody, I haven't even shared this with anybody yet, so I'm excited to see what you guys think. Yeah, so if you don't mind doing that, Louise, that would be awesome.
All right, here it comes, folks, and you can give us the green check mark when you're done.
So stop that one there. Just waiting for green check marks when you're done. So it looks like most of us have had a chance to watch. So again, you know, this is one of 6 videos that appears throughout this new substance use resource, and so that one was specifically about harmful effects, you know, because what we take a very holistic approach a lot of the time, and with substance use, I feel like young people get drilled into their head like it's bad for your body, it's bad for your brain to use it, but also trying to drive home the point, literally in the voice from a young person that's been there, that there are more, it's not just about the physical effects. It affected her friendships. It affected her ability to continue with her education. It affected her emotional state. So that's just one, and like I said, and they're all in that style, and they're all her, that's her voice talking, and it's been so exciting to work with her, and it's why we work with youth. As Denise said, it's nice to hear this from a youth perspective instead of having a talking head adult talking to young people about drugs and alcohol. This is like basically my final slide. I just wanted to show you that, you know, Louise will share this document with you. This is like a terrible slide of this document, and it's got text that you can't read because it's too small, but I just wanted to show you that Mind Your Mind, you know, even though we started off as a program that was making things specifically for youth, as a program we've evolved to taking on more and more projects, whether it be research or working you know, directly with school boards or with the Ministry of Education or different initiatives around education. These are just some of our partners in education. We try to, you know, because we see the value, and we're seeing that educators see the value in some of our resources. And that, you know, I'm not showing this to you to brag about like, oh, look at us, but I think that I'm showing this to you because I want you to know, as we've talked about, and you guys seem very aware of this fact, that mental health is very much on the radar at the ministry level, at the board level, and at the school level in Ontario. It's very exciting. It's an exciting time to be doing this work for me personally and as a program, but I think it's an exciting time for you guys too, and I think that the fact that you're hungry for this kind of information shows that you're really on board with it, and it's you know, it's something that is going to come up, and so I think that's why I wanted to share some of the resources that we have with you guys. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts. I mean, I don't have any. I think that's what I wanted to share. Again, I would encourage you really. You just had little tastes here and there of this resource, but of the resources. But please, I would encourage you to really explore mindyourmind.ca or get your students to, perhaps, if you feel comfortable, just letting them loose on the site and have them tell you what they think about it and what they think is relevant. And so hopefully. I should have put that continuum again at the end to see, you know, hopefully some of the stuff that you saw in here would be like you could stick in your tool belt for the new year, the new school year that's coming up after the summer, so that you feel your comfort level and your knowledge level is a little bit higher than maybe it was about an hour ago. So are there any questions or comments? I see Allison, thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoy the resources, and and Louise, I don't know if you have any. Oh, look at that. I brought it back for you, so you can revisit. You're like a wizard, Louise. So I don't know if you want to do this little thing again, choose a new icon. I know that before I started at Mind Your Mind, I would have been like, I was somebody that I can talk about anything, but my knowledge level was low. Like that's where I would have been, you know, 5 years ago. But now I feel pretty good. I'm like over here now, working here. But And I'm glad, Denise, that you mentioned, yeah, you can direct students to this. You know, if you don't feel like you're going to use this in your classroom, there's at least, you know, we talked about where does mental health appear in the curriculum. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're a math teacher, you know, and you're finding it like, how do I incorporate conversations about mental health into the classroom? Well, the universal unifying thing that probably any high school teacher in this room right now would say is that exams are coming up. And that, you know, students are stressed. So if nothing else, mindyourmind.ca might be a place that you can direct students if you feel like they're struggling, or just to say, you know, heads up, if you're, you know, exams are coming up, how are you guys feeling? How are you managing your stress? Or, you know, just so you know, if you're ever worried about a friend, there's a site you can go to and the help pages are really great, or really comprehensive. So, you know, you can leave them in. It's just easier. It's easier in some environments than other. But I think stress is a unifying. It's a mental health issue. We all have, you know, stress. So that's something that's a way to open the door to conversation for sure. So Louise, I'm seeing some great comments. Thanks, Allison. I'm glad to hear that you're going to use this with your students, and yeah, even if it's just something that you pass along, you've got in your tool belt to pass along to your students or your colleagues, that makes me very happy.
Yes, this has been absolutely terrific. So thank you very much, Andrea, and thank you to all of you who are so attentive and obviously caring educators, as most educators, of course, are, and we certainly appreciate that you're here giving up some of your own time to definitely make fantastic resources like this available to your students as well. You know, it seems like everybody's in agreement here that we just got to spread the word and get things like this out to students. And as Andrea said earlier, when you engage youth in the process, change happens, and obviously we'd have to add to that when we're engaged in that process of engaging youth, you know, the power for change will be even greater. So thank you all so very, very much. And I'm going to just drop into the chat here the link for tonight's feedback form and the resource page. So the resource page with all the links that Andrea shared is all ready to go. And there it is. And you will get that by email in a couple of minutes as well. And we do, of course, have a feedback form that we would love for you to fill out. And that's that there, but I'm going to move my slide as well. Sorry, you can click on the big orange Google link in the center of the screen or on the link in the chat and go fill out that feedback form. It's only about 1 or 2 minutes. We like to keep it quick and easy for you. Also, the other link that's on the page there is our past webinars and resources page, and so there are many, many, many. We actually have 180 archived recordings of all kinds of different OTF Connect sessions, and all the related resources are right there on the OTF website. And so if you're looking for things to do in your spare time, they're there for you, and this one will be posted there in about 15 minutes, and you'll be able to share those out with your colleagues as well. So thank you, everyone, and please, of course, enjoy the rest of your school year and have a safe summer, and we hope to see you again at some point in the future.
Yes, thanks everybody, guys. This was really fun. I mean it. Thanks so much for giving up your time. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I'm sure we'd look forward to having further opportunities to share Mind Your Mind resources out to teachers in publicly funded schools in Ontario. So thank you all so very, very much.